Hey, deserving listeners, in the history of me watching these shows, I don't think there's ever been a show that is more up my alley, at least from the trailer. So 90 Day Fiancé, The Last Resort, these ongoing couples, I believe, go to therapy. So let's watch it. My name is Dr. Kirk Honda. I'm a therapist and a professor. Let's see what happens.
Tell you piss me off, but how long do you think that'll be?
30 minutes. How long does it take to get to the bar? This is a make or break it for us.
Our relationship is just full of extremes, good and bad.
So at the tell-all.
Yeah, I could see that. I imagine that their relationship is legit because, of course, there are times when people will accuse some of the couples of faking a relationship or faking a significant part of what they're showing us. But I think there's a good chance that a lot, especially given that leaked phone conversation between Ed and Liz, was a more extreme version of what we see on camera. So I think that we're seeing a representation of their relationship. It's hard to know, but it looks like it. And I think that behind the scenes, it gets worse and probably better as well. They probably have a lot of good moments that they don't show us in the edit because the producers aren't really interested in showing us that because it doesn't get us angry at Ed. And so I'm guessing that that is true, that they have a lot of really great moments and a lot of really negative moments.
I got busted for lying about texting Rose, who is my ex-girlfriend.
Okay, so he said, I got busted. That's a weird word. I don't know what that means. You would hope that, because it wasn't that he talked to Rose, and Liz was explicit about this during the tell-all. It was that he was just straight up lying. And then when Liz is like, how come you were lying about that? And all he had to say was, I don't know, I didn't want to lose you. Something like that. It still would have been awful that he had lied, but he then does what he does, which is an abusive tactic, and he turns it around on her and says, well, you're overly jealous, and starts to get hostile and aggressive verbally with her, which was pretty awful to watch. So let's see his narrative for this.
Has Ed messaged you or spoken to you the last couple months?
Yeah.
I don't think I have any more respect.
Let me have my ring back.
Oh.
Right, I forgot about that. That he uses, so on one hand, you could frame this as he uses the give me my ring back, the dangling of the engagement ring and the wedding in front of her as a tactic for control. That's one way you could word it. Another way is that, which I think is potentially more accurate, is that given his traumas, he will become very hurt and very afraid, and he has a way of dealing with that. I think I must have talked about this back then, but it's worth revisiting since we're going to be watching them again. Because I think this season was ages ago in terms of 90 Day Fiancé time. There's been a lot of seasons in between. Anyway, I think it's very tempting to see someone like Ed and conclude that he is arrogant and he doesn't care about other people's feelings and that he is cold and calculated in his behavior. Like this moment where he's caught in a lie and then says, without any remorse seemingly, without any emotion seemingly, give me my ring, you're bothering me, very, very awful and dismissive and hurtful. I think it's tempting to conclude that he doesn't have a heart, or at least in this moment, he doesn't have a heart. Usually what I find is, because in the beginning of my career, I would be occasionally tricked and bamboozled by this defense. And it can happen with people of any gender, by the way. So I think it's often associated with men, but anyone can. Essentially, it's a front. It's a tough person front that they will put forward. For the IFS folks, it'd be the policeman or the guard or the bouncer part of you. But anyway, so the possibility is that he believes, my hypothesis about him is that he deep down believes he is nothing, that he's disgusting, that no one will ever love him, and he has to kind of cajole people to love him, either through his money or his fake charm that he puts on. So I don't know if you say fake, but his charming persona that he puts forward, his ability to elevate people's career because he's on the show, or his ability to bring people to the United States to save their lives, according to some people might say that, right? I mean, the place that Rose was coming from was pretty severe, and it could have literally been that, not only for her but for her son. So I think that for him, he believes that he's inherently rejectable. No one will ever love him. And whenever there's any kind of a conflict, I think he very, in a distorted way, goes to this place of, it's over, she hates me. And then immediately this tough person persona comes forward, like almost at the exact same time. And the pain that he's feeling and the terror that he's feeling is nowhere near his conscious mind, but it is dictating everything that's going on underneath. And then he puts forward this arrogant, I don't care, I'm above it all, I'm smarter than you attitude, and you're the problem, I'm not the problem. And we all do this to some degree. He does it to a larger degree. And that's my hypothesis about that. And I'm not saying this to defend him because whatever, but I'm saying this because if you have someone like this in your life, and I'm sure that you do, because this is a very common defense to rejection, worries, and pain, it's very tempting to interpret that as a heartless individual. And not only will that be, lead to misunderstandings and more conflict, but it also especially if it's a teenager or a kid or someone that you're trying to help, either professionally or just in your life, it will be very deceiving. And that's where I've been as a therapist, is I'll have someone that's like this, and they will completely convince me that they don't care, that they're just above it, that things don't really rattle them. And when push comes to shove, they're like, well, whatever, I don't need people, and they walk out the door. People that are very upset underneath it all, that are very worried, for some of them, they can become very good at convincing the world that they're above it all. Think of the average teenager. That's what often they're trying to achieve, even for kids that aren't particularly insecure. They are often trying to put forth this notion that, whatever, I'm cool. That's why these words that we use, like cool and chill and other kinds of words in that category, it's this elevation of people that are whatever, and things don't rattle them. And that's pathological, because when things are happening to us, you should get rattled. You are rattled. The fact that you're acting cool and chill doesn't mean you actually are on the inside. You know what I mean? Because we have this notion in our society that to be otherwise is to be weak and needy or something, and that denies people the ability to be a human being and to understand each other. Anyway, so not only that, but also you might be like him in some way. You might actually have a very tough persona, and you might wonder why no one cares about your feelings. I've worked with a lot of clients who will have that refrain eventually. Once they figure out their pain, they will say, it seems like people just don't even really care about my feelings. And at first I will think, okay, how do we set that up? But then as time goes on, I figure out, the person that has that complaint, sometimes they are giving very convincing signals to other people that they don't even have any feelings, or that their feelings are minimal. And so it starts with you. It starts with your ability to actually know your feelings and feel your feelings and express them in ways that are alerting to other people. That's why we have a lot of emotion, is because they're meant to alert others so that they can adjust their behavior towards us. So you can go to therapy, actually, to work on that. Hey, deserving listeners, today's episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. Sometimes in life, we are faced with tough choices, and the path forward isn't always clear. And some of you might even be facing a tough choice right now. Well, for me, I like to fully explore all the options. That usually helps me to feel more confident moving forward. And sometimes it really helps to talk with someone and get their perspective and maybe their wisdom. And of course, therapy can help with this. I never planned on specializing in this area when I started out as a therapist, but over time, a lot of clients have come to me when they are facing tough choices that they're having a hard time figuring out what to do. Well, one option worth exploring is BetterHelp. If you're thinking of starting therapy, it's worth giving a try. It's entirely online. It's designed to be convenient and suited to your schedule. And also, you can switch therapists at any time at no additional charge. So, let therapy be your map with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/Kirk today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/Kirk.
Wow.
Wow. Ooh, wow.
I just want to move on.
We didn't communicate for 2 weeks, but I recently had shoulder surgery, and you can't move. You're completely...
Okay. Yeah. So I think the last we heard from them was that they were seemingly heading towards yet another breakup. I think they've broken up a couple dozen times, if not more than that. And I'm pretty sure I would have speculated that I didn't think this would actually end their relationship, because the things that have happened in the past did not rise to the level where Liz would actually leave Ed, because I think Ed always eventually tries to come around, and Liz always responds to that. And we also heard from a previous cycle that they had broken up, and Ed lost one of their big breakups that seemingly was maybe for good, one of those. And then his dog died, and he reached out to her, or she reached out to him or something, and then that sparked their relationship again. I think an uncharitable perspective is that he uses this to manipulate. It could be, but I think it's more likely that, given my hypothesis about the deep insecurity and pain that he experiences but doesn't show because he doesn't want to be weak, and he might not even want to show it to himself consciously, that due to that, he is having a lot of these reactions that over time he starts, another very unfortunate thing about our defenses is that the more we engage in them and the less we are aware of what's going on underneath, we end up justifying it to ourselves. Like, there's a possibility that he has all this pain and trauma that's going on underneath the surface. He's not super aware of it, or he's not aware of it at all, but he only notices consciously that he becomes very dismissive. Give me the ring back. You're a problem. Hostility, blaming, half apologies that aren't real. He notices that, and people try to uphold a sense of self-esteem that they are good. Everyone tries to do that. At least the vast majority of us do. And so, if you don't know why you're doing these things, you're like, well, I know I'm a good person. I know my intentions are good at the very least, and I'm doing these things, and people are yelling at me about them. So it must be everyone else, because I feel like I'm not doing anything wrong. It feels justified to me. So how can I narrativize the situation such that the story is that I'm okay as a human being? Well, I must be logical and everyone else is stupid, or women are frivolous, or something. There's a matrix of justification that upholds the defensive structure. And I'm guessing that's at play as well. And then eventually, as he starts to calm down from the pain that he went through that led to him presenting behaviors to her that caused the breakup, then he starts to long for her again, but isn't exactly sure what happened, but again, narrativizes it as, well, she's a problem and she's overly emotional. I think he's literally said things like that. I think he does have that narrative. And, you got to take the good with the bad, so I'll reach out to her and I'll let her come back. But in his head, he's like, I know I didn't do anything wrong, because, again, the defensive structure depends on him concluding that. And then he just kind of avoids talking about the past conflict, and then Liz does too. And he might say, I'm sorry, but he isn't really sorry because he's not really investigating his side of things. And Liz interprets that behavior as reconciliation and as taking responsibility. And I think, given Liz's history Ed is super nice and super non-abusive compared to, I think, her previous relationships. She's been married twice before, and I think she's even talked about the abuse that happened there. So I think for her, by contrast, Ed is a saint. And so she doesn't really see the woods for the trees. And she's like, oh, okay. I always wanted someone to apologize, and he's apologizing. So that must mean that he's a good person. And I'm not saying he's not, but I don't think he's, at least on camera, ever really apologized. You know what I mean? Anyway, so then they get back together, and then he gets triggered again by something. He does that whole thing again. And because in previous seasons, I would see Liz during those fights, she seemed to be saying to, while they're in conflict in front of the camera, that she's like, we've been here before, you've done this to me before. So I think she's aware of it, but not aware enough. And she has, I think, a lot of love for him. And I think she really wants to try to make it work. And I think it does work between the two of them a lot of the times when he's not being triggered.
Mobile, and we reconnected, and she was able to be there, to really take care of me. We know we love each other. That's a given. So we kind of started all over again.
I'll call you guys as soon as the room is ready, okay?
Okay.
Yeah, that's worrisome. I think they've said similar things, and I've heard similar things from other couples on these shows. They'll say, we're wiping the slate clean, we're going to start all over again. That's a recipe for disaster. If you don't learn from your mistakes, from your own personal problems, then you're bound to repeat it. In fact, it'll be worse because you have built up pain about that person. Never mind the traumas before you ever met this person. Now you have traumas between the two of you that will reemerge because you've completely ignored them, and you say, we're just moving forward in life. And, I get it because people don't know what else to do, but go to therapy.
Yeah, we'll take a bottle.
Bottle? There you go, guys.
Oh, thank you so much.
Thank you.
That's probably the best part of our fights.
Is the makeup sex.
Is the makeup sex.
Yeah.
She calls me daddy. Oh, daddy.
You're such a thing.
Hi, yeah, sex positivity, each to their own. It's a visual. All right, well, if you want to support what we're doing here, one of the best things you can do, especially if you're watching this video, is you can become a member of the channel by clicking the join button. If you don't see a join button below by the subscribe button, you can click on a link in the description that should be there that will give you the ability to join the channel. When you join the channel, you're giving us the ability to make these videos. When you become a member of the channel or you become a patron, then it literally pays my bills so that I don't have to come out of retirement and work at the university again. So only if you want to, only if you can afford it. And also, when you become a member, you get access to exclusive videos. I don't know exactly what pace I'm able to put out exclusive videos on YouTube. For a while there, it was almost every week, but then it slowed down because I got sick and I had COVID. I got a cold and then I got COVID after that. So I wasn't able to do that. But, something like 3 a month, maybe more. I don't know. But and you can vote on them too if you want to see me do something. I don't know, like dance like a monkey. I'll do that for if that's what wins. No, I wouldn't do that probably. No one would want to see that. So yeah, become a member if you want to. And everyone, please take care of yourself because you deserve it. You really, really do.